Hi, have a nice day, Ma'am Nancy. This video will be the discussion and explanation on how do I employ my way of teaching toward my students and what is my methods, technique, and strategy in addressing my topic toward my students so that they can easily comprehend and they can easily understand my discussion. So since nowadays we are living in the 21st century, so I integrate them and I use some mini techniques that I think that could help them. And as a teacher, every teacher, they have their learning plan or lesson plan. And I do believe that it depends upon the teacher if they have their motivation or not. But since I have my actual demonstration as requirement, so I do have my motivation for for the sake of my demonstration, actual demonstration requirements. So I do have my motivation. So what I did is that since every lesson plan, there would be motivation. But it depends upon the teacher if they have. It's okay if they don't have, and it's okay also if they have motivation. But for me kasi, it's actual demonstration and requirements. So what I did, I have my motivation. And at that time is that during my motivation, I group them. So what is the purpose of grouping my students? It's because there is group score and individual score. Group score is that during collaboration, by giving an activity, is that the teacher will test the student who is active students, who is slow learner or fast learner. So through a group activity or group works, the all the members they help with one another and they can share different ideas. So what I told my students is that during the group activity it is better to be open-minded and it is better to accept different ideas and not to interrupt if somebody is sharing during their idea, so that they have respect or they respect with one another or they respect the idea of their classmate rather. And if they don't like the idea, so proceed to another idea. So that is a group score. It's because the teacher knows or the teacher observed who was or who were the students didn't help or did help at that time or at that activity. So there is also individual score. So that is my strategy po, Ma'am Nancy. Individual score, that is after the activity or after they guess the topic. So there is a lesson proper or lesson discussion. So I remained them to their group and I never told them go back to their proper seat, but to remain their group. And so that I will ask by group what they have learned or uh, what specific learning or what specific response if I ask them a question. So that is my way of teaching. First, they have motivation, but as what I've said earlier, it depends upon the teacher. But since this is actual demonstration, so I do have my motivation. And in addition, during my motivation, I give them 20 seconds. 20 seconds to reflect, to think critically, and so that is a way of a teacher to test if the students they can formulate, they can arrange the words, they have many ideas. So that's how a teacher tests the students by asking, by giving them an activity so that the students will actively participate during the group activity.
Now, going back to the collaboration or what we call group activity where students help one another and collaborate with one another, it's because it is a way of a teacher and a technique of a teacher in order to identify who were the group who performed well and who were the group who did not perform well. So as for me as a teacher, it is a way for me to identify who is a slow learner and who is fast learner. And I do believe many of the teacher using that way of teaching and using that way of strategy in order to test, in order to measure or how to identify the students' ability if they can perform well or not. And I think that is a great help for the students because we all know that the teachers they do this not for themselves but they do the lesson or they do the topic or the discussion for the students so that they can learn and so that they have a lot of understanding and learnings from the lesson that the teacher had employed or had shared to them. And in addition, since in the 21st century, the students are what we call student centered and the teacher is only a facilitator. So that is why I have my group activity po, Ma'am Nancy. It's because nowadays, in the 21st century, we have the student centered and we are not going to be a traditional teacher but a modern or what we call in the 21st century for them to learn fast or to learn easily, and that's a way for a teacher. But that, as for me po, Ma'am Nancy, in traditional way of teaching, I do believe that it is important also because in traditional way of teaching, it is a very common the paper pencil test and memorization or memorize, and that is very important also nowadays. Not only the student centered. I'm not talking about the teacher will tackle everything or they will be the one to discuss everything, but I do believe that it is part of the learning that the students or the learners they will memorize before they will enter to the school or they will study first ahead of time. So memorization is part of them. So there is traditional. I'm not talking traditional that the teacher will discuss and discuss, but by letting the students to study ahead of time so that during the performance they can perform well or during the group activity. And I do believe that a good teacher uh, will allow the students to socialize with their classmates and to know their classmates by having a group activity. And I use also or some of the teacher use this one what we call heterogeneous. It's because there is the slow learner and the fast learner. They will meet with one another and they know with each other and they can help with one another. The fast learner can help to the slow learner and the slow learner can learn to the fast learner. And that is why I told them to be open-minded, not to criticize, and be humble. So what you said, Ma'am Nancy, a true theologian is a humble theologian. And so I also address and teach to that to my students that a good students, a brilliant students is not only good in cognitive, is not only good in affective, is not good only in psychomotor, but holistically developed by those three domains in learning, which is the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So I told them not only to develop their cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. What I mean is that you will not only focus on one domain of learning, but holistically develop the three domains of learning. And I do that it's because I've been there already as a student before, and even now I am a teacher. Rather, I am a student in IRF, and I respect and I do believe that a humble and a good students will remain to respect their professor, to remain a lovable, to remain a humble person, and that's all. Thank you po, Ma'am Nancy.